Hello, everyone. It's Nate Levice with Judge Tira, again, back in the podcast studio at Benchmark Studios. I'm excited today. Ryan Tira actually reached out to us, and he wanted to be back on the podcast, and I think he has a lot of questions for me this time. He wants to figure out, I guess my perspective and my outlook on things, and I'm excited to hear what he has, and I'm excited to ask him some questions, too, that I couldn't get to ask him because we had so many people in the podcast studio last time, but
thank you for having me back, Nate. I'm excited to just have more conversation about juvenile justice and kind of how you guys are kind of doing it and what's working, what's not.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, if you don't mind, I really want to know, starting off, who was Judge Tira before Judge Tira? Like, who was little Ryan? Did you always want to be Judge Tira, or was it who did you want to be when you were younger?
No, absolutely not. I never thought about being a judge until I was way into my legal career. I think, when I was young, I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to play sports. But when you're not maybe pushing 5'10", you can't jump. You got moderate speed. If I'm generous, you start to realize at some point that I'm an average, decent athlete. I'm not. That's not my future. So you start to look for other ways. And going to law school was where I, from a kid, thought that's where I was headed. Didn't know what was going to take me.
Okay. And what law school did you go to?
I went to Temple in Philadelphia. So I went from Franklin and Marshall here in Lancaster, east to Temple for law school, and I thought I'd be staying in a big city. That didn't happen. So I really ended up going back to where I grew up, and it was by chance. I got married while I was in law school, so I had a little different course than most of the people in law school, and my wife was working, and I was going to school, and it was kind of where we wanted to head.
Okay. So I think there's a lot of redirection, right? As far as I think there's a lot of redirection in my life as well, and I think we can really relate to that. Me growing up, I didn't think I was going to be a mentor at Benchmark Program for a nonprofit organization that helps kids reach their true potential through weightlifting. I didn't think that was the case for me. If you asked me when I was 10, 13 years old, I would have told you that jail or death, 100%. And I've accepted that already.
How old do you think you were?
Probably 10 or 13 years old.
So before that, I'm going to ask you one of my questions. Go back before that. And before you had that kind of, this is where my life was going to go, did you have dreams? Do you remember having dreams as a kid before that, this is where I want?
I don't remember dreaming as much. I just remember, I remember thinking to myself a lot of times in certain situations, like living in a shelter or something like that. I just remember thinking, this is not where it ends for me all the time. I knew it wasn't going to end like this for me.
Yeah.
So being hungry or whatever the case may be, I was like, this is not how my story ends for sure.
But then something clicked, or something, not in a good way, something happened that you thought by age 12, you're going to end up in jail or you're going to end up dead. Right.
So but by that time, in that stage of my life, I was more or less that's, quote unquote, I jumped off the porch. That's when I started getting into the stuff I was getting into. And then understanding okay, if we look at everyone that did this, I wasn't a dumb kid. So when I looked at everyone that did this, I knew what their outcome was.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I was better than any of them. So I just learned to accept it.
That was going to be the same path.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And that's what I always wonder, because I had a guy who, in adult court, told me when I had to sentence him. And we had this conversation, and when you say that about either going to die or in jail, he literally said he thought he would never make it to 21.
Yeah.
He thought, and the idea of him making it to 30, he and his friends, he said, I never thought I'd ever be here. And he was talking to me because he'd now gotten to the place where he cleaned his life up. Unfortunately, I had to sentence him because the crime had already been a couple years before that. And in the interim, he cleaned up his life. And it was one of the coolest conversations I hear him tell me about, he finally had this realization, he just, unfortunately, had this, what you said, this is where everybody else, this is the path that happened with my friends.
Right.
It's going for me. I can tell you now, I'm glad to say that after probation or state parole put him back in for a little bit. He's out. He's doing well. But that mindset, it just threw me. The idea that he was like, he assumed he wouldn't be 35 years old. And now he's 35 and he's being like an unpaid mentor is what he's literally, he spends a lot of time, he sees people kind of stumbling and he kind of comes alongside them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see that, but like it threw me back when you said that. Like it makes me like wonder how that comes about, like at that early age that you get to that like thought.
Yeah, I think just accepting reality of like how you're living, I think that just comes with that. And I also think that, you got to kind of cultivate a mentality of like, how do you work through these certain circumstances and adversities that we face? Like, and I knew that me getting through those things was one of the problems was I needed money.
Yeah.
Right? To do a lot of the things, right? To get food, to get clothes. When you're in school, clothes is super important. What's on your feet? Shoes, what kind of shoes you got on your feet? That's super important when you're in school. And you didn't want to get made fun of in school. So, and I knew my parents didn't have the money to get me the shoes that I wanted, so I had to go figure it out myself, right? So I think we're faced with challenges that kind of push us to do different things and figure it out. So like it was more or less like, all right, obviously like the circumstances and adversity you faced growing up was a lot different from what I faced. Yeah. But the truth is you faced adversity, but the people and the networking that you were equipped with, I didn't have the same thing.
I just think about, I was starting at a different base.
Right.
And I try to keep that in mind and recognize that like I was blessed in a lot of ways that I didn't have to, like you're worried about some basics, and I knew I had that.
Yeah.
I knew my parents. I might argue with them over like, oh, I want this type of shoe, which is more expensive. Right. But I knew I had a little bit higher starting level from what they were able to provide me.
Yeah.
So I think about that, and that's the reason I try and make sure I understand that, and I don't miss that when I'm working with people. Yeah. The understanding that we're not like, unfortunately, some people are not don't have that support base.
But the truth is, I think honestly, like I'm blessed myself though.
Yeah.
To understand like how it feels. Honestly, people be like, how does it feel like, coming out of like where I came out of, and if you look at like sometimes it doesn't match the vision, right? Reality doesn't match the vision, right? So my reality at that time, if you look at where I was coming from, you wouldn't think that I would be where I'm at now, right? A lot of people fall victim to their surroundings and their environment and things like that. But honestly, I really think I'm blessed though to be in those type of situations and be in that environment, understand it, and then somehow, some way, like I got out of there. I was lucky, right?
Yeah.
To start thinking differently. And shifting my perspective into a long-term thinking where like, okay, let's line it up so I can buy a house by the time I'm 30 years old, So now it's a lot different for me. But I think I'm blessed because I'm scared to go back.
All right.
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people think like that, but I'm scared to.
You don't want that,
I'm all right. I'm cool. I don't want that again, right? I don't want to be back in jail and have to, the guards are telling me, turn off the lights. Yeah. It's time to go to sleep. I'm a grown man. What do you mean? If I want to stay up, I should be able to stay up. They're turning the TV off on us. Sometimes we can't get the remote. I can't watch what I want to watch. No, you're watching this today. It's just what it is. So me understanding that and me knowing that I never want to go back to that, I think I'm blessed as well, just as though you feel as though like you were blessed to have those things. Now,
because you work with kids, do you see that same, can you recognize that mindset of, I'm just going to end up going to jail anyway, so this is what I do?
Yeah.
Can you recognize that in kids? The kids you're working with, and be like, I know that feeling.
Yeah, 100%. You can hear it. You can hear it when they speak about it, or they take pride in what they do.
Right.
They kind of just like you can see it in their face, like they take pride in, I do this and this and this, and this is how I do it. You've already accepted, like, oh, this is my only option,
and this is or it's a good option.
Right, that's your best option. That's what they think. But a lot of times when I talk to kids and stuff like that, and we hear those things, like a kid will talk about selling drugs.
Yeah,
I'll sit down and break down. All right, how much weed do you get? Let's be real. And they'll be like, all right, well, they might not want to tell me at first, right? And I'll tell them, I said, listen, I'm not anyone that's gonna sit here and report you to anyone. Just tell me. Let's break down the numbers, right? Do you smoke? Yeah, I smoke. Okay, so you smoke weed. You sell weed? Yeah, I sell weed. Okay, how much weed do you buy? All right, I buy let's just say like an ounce. I buy an ounce. How much do you smoke? I smoke every day. Okay, so long story short, we go through the numbers, and I tell them that you don't sell weed to get clothes or help your mom out. You sell weed so you can continue to smoke weed. You're not making any money. And then when they realize that, they're like, damn, I'm not really doing anything, right? Or then we break it down to the point where it's like, you sell weed to help out your family, right? Let's say you are selling weed and you're making profit off of it. You sell weed to help out your family. What happens when you go to jail? Because do you know that, like, how much a lawyer costs? No, let's look it up. How much does a lawyer cost? Let's look up. How much does it cost when you go to jail? Like, how much is the commissary? So now you used to sell weed to help out your mom, but now what are you doing to your mom because you're in jail? Now you become a burden. You become more money. Now she has to pay for a lawyer. She has to put money on your books. You know you're going to get caught? Do you think you're going to outsmart everyone? Or you think, so just to having those real life conversations with them.
And so you can pick up on it, and that's the mindset. Yeah. Is there a bit of, I don't want to say pride, but there's a bit of, I'm cool if I'm the guy who is running the drugs and I'm the guy who can get a gun. Is there a bit of rep that comes with it? And that's enticing. Is that part of it also?
100%. It's the status.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I'm like, is it survival? Is it status?
Status.
Because I think every kid wants attention.
Right.
And it may be good attention, maybe bad attention.
You ain't getting it at home.
You're not getting it at home.
Right. And they're most likely not getting it at home. So exactly what you think is exactly what it is. They get status. And with that status, comes with, I have a gun. You know I have a gun. You're not going to mess around with me.
All right.
But then everyone knows, like, yo, he has a gun. And then everyone knows, like, all right, don't mess around with him. And then when you get into your first shootout, or whatever the case may be, it becomes, yo, he's going to shoot his gun. Now it's, I have a gun to, he's going to actually shoot his gun. So now, like, really don't mess with him. And that's what it becomes.
Then how do you, once you get to that status and that mindset, working in your job now, how do you start to flip that around to, like, tell them, like, yeah, you have a gun, you're willing to use it. Eventually, it's going to end poorly.
Right.
Like, how do you get them to start to come around to, like, being willing to give up that status?
Yeah, a lot of it is just honestly just asking questions so that they come to the conclusion that it's not worth shooting someone. Yeah. Right. So I don't think kids understand. Right. We talk about short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. They don't understand the ripple effect that shooting someone has on the community, doesn't have on the family, doesn't have on your family. They just think like, this is the problem. He needs to go. This is what it is. This is my option.
That's the reason, to me, I guess I had enough fear of going to jail as a kid.
Right.
Like, I couldn't even fathom the idea of killing someone, and the idea that knowing that even if I killed the person that's a problem, next day I was going to have bigger problems.
So did you ever do something that was like could have possibly put you in jail? Like, did you steal something from the corner store one time, or?
Well, like, I got in some trouble like 8th, 9th grade. I think I joked about it last time I was here. But nothing that I thought would ever land me in, like, the idea of going away. Like, I always thought there's a line. Like, I'm not going to do something that's going to put me in jail.
Okay.
I always had a fear,
right,
of that idea.
So, so did you that fear, right? But if you were put in, if you did something to land yourself in jail,
yeah,
do you think like? How do you think like that fear would have obviously had to have went away?
Going away?
Yeah, or would you have been fearful in jail?
I don't know. I do think I'm pretty good at surviving, handling adversity, that type of stuff. But
right.
I don't know. That's not a thing I've ever had to do. The only time I've been in jails is as a visitor, and as going in, and I know that the sound of that door locking behind you and not being able to open a door and being kind of feeling stuck at times. I just can't, like, to me, I still have that today. Like, I have no interest in doing anything that's going to get me close to that line.
100%. Yeah.
And like, but I think I'm also gotten older. And I think naturally as you get older, you start to have like, all right, you're a little bit more cautious.
Right.
But I'm just saying thing when I was younger, like I think it partially is like, for me to turn some of the stupid young kid behavior I had was I love playing sports so much, and I had it taken away from me for a month, And that was sort of like that's, and even then I still didn't immediately open my eyes. I continued to kind of push it.
Right.
And then I got a second warning and said, this is it. Like, this is your chance. Like, either you're going to lose it or you're going to change what you're doing.
Right. And I think, so look, I'll tell you, I think everyone has a fear of going to jail.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real fear, especially when you're a young kid and you're like, I don't ever want to go to jail. That's a bad place, right? It's the ultimate timeout, right? But I'll tell you what happened to me, and I think this happens to most kids. I got locked up for assault and robbery. I went to jail. They came into the school. They came into Burley Academy. They called me up to the office and they locked me up. Right? Yeah. They took me down, and the only thing I was thinking when I was doing my fingerprints and taking my pictures and stuff, right, for jail, I was just thinking, as soon as I walk in here, the first kid that I see, the first person I'm gonna see, I'm gonna punch them in the face, just to let everyone
Survival
know.
Mode.
Right, I'm gonna let everyone know in this pod that I'm not here because I'm scared, or I'm letting everyone know I'm in here and I will beat you up. As soon as I walked in there, all my friends were in there. So now the fear of going to jail
wasn't bad.
Done. Now I'm not scared to go to jail.
All right. I wonder because I see people, juveniles and adults in court who are repeat. It's like, all right, you got out 6 months ago and now you're back here with a new matter and you're facing more jail time and you just don't seem fazed. And that's like, as an adult, and be it someone who's just a repeat substance user, drunk driver, like they're going to go back in. Mm-hmm. And they just don't seem like all that fazed.
Do you think that's the difference, though? Do you think the difference is, like, you talked about when you got sports taken away from you for a month, and that kind of bothered you, and you were like, all right, like, I need to kind of clean up my act. You didn't get it right away. No. But do you think that was, like, the difference? Like, there was nothing – I wasn't really involved in a lot when I was younger, so there was no, like, what were you going to take away from me? I didn't have anything.
And that's something you said last time. You use a phrase, and I think that's something I want to use with kids is expansion or exposure equals expansion.
100%.
And that's what I think we need to try to aim for kids, to give them something
right.
that's worth them, like saying, I don't want to lose. I want this. And so I when we work with kids, a lot of times I ask them what they like to do.
Yeah.
If it's sports, it's music, arts, whatever, to try to get them something that they're invested in so they don't want to lose it.
Right. And I think that separates you from a lot of people. Like you talked about on the last podcast, you talked about listening to NBA YoungBoy because some kid told you that was his favorite artist. That separates you from a lot. And that's going to put you, I feel as though, as far as like building rapport with kids that you see, it separates you a whole lot because I know that you're willing to take the time out to listen to what I like, Yeah. What do you think, as far as being a judge, what do you think like the most difficult decision that you had to make in the courtroom? What was it, if you could talk about it?
I'm just going back because I'm trying to think if there's one particular one. There's hard situations to deal with where it's just heartbreaking to see what's happened. But that's different. But when you're talking about like trying to make a decision, and it's typically for me, it's the kid who is either if I'm going to be moving a kid, and it can be in juveniles, putting them in placement. It could be a kid who's in dependency, taking them out of the home and putting them with foster parents, or even in custody where parents are fighting, and I've got to move a kid. That's the hardest thing, like to know I'm making the best decision with what's told to me,
right,
and not knowing what's going to happen on the other side of it. And that's the hardest thing for me, I guess, to try to work my way through is like, what is not to, because I don't ever want to be like, okay, it is what it is, and the chips will fall where they are.
Right.
That's hard for me.
Okay. How do you? I got another question. How do you like view what you do? How important do you think it is? I believe it's really important, especially having someone like you that's willing to come here and ask questions. Like, how do I do it?
Yeah. Well, for me, I looked at my job and I said this after I got on the bench. I thought, I love this job because my job is to get up every day and try to help people figure out a problem and do what I think's right. And as a lawyer, that's not always your job. And I would be like candid about that. Is like there's many times if you're in private practice, you have clients whose motives and what they want to do, nothing unethical, nothing illegal, but don't make you feel real good about what you're asked to do.
Right.
It's like if it's a business deal and it's pretty cutthroat, and you start doing things like that, and it just isn't a whole lot of fun. And then I took this job on, and I feel like my job is I look at it like I don't take pleasure in the fact that these people have problems, like either a juvenile coming before me or someone that's in foster care. My whole thing is, how do we help you fix a problem? Mm-hmm. So I love that part of my job in the sense that I get to be like, hey, like to a young man, young woman, be like, hey, what do you like to do? How can we get you to do something differently? Or parents who are struggling with substance use, like, how can we help you get over that or control that so you can have your kids and raise your kids? Because I want you to have your kids back. I don't want your kids going into the system. So that's the reason I importance level, how level people would grade it, I love it, and I think it's the right spot for what I want to do.
Yeah, I think it's just, I heard someone say before, like, how you view what you do it impacts how you do what you do.
That's a good way to say it.
Right? So, like, you love it. You love, like, the, helping. That's just what it is.
I think we all need a purpose. And 100%. I think in life is that you need a purpose, because if you do a job and you can make a lot of money on it, but it doesn't have a whole lot of purpose for you, you're going to eventually just be done. You're going to be burned out, and you're actually probably going to get worse at it instead of better at it.
Right. And there's a book that Will had me listen to, and it's called Power of Purpose by Les Brown.
All right.
He had me listen to that book, and in that book he just talks about, I don't care if you want to be a garbage man. Be the best garbage man that you could possibly be. Make sure that every time you're on that block, people know, like, this guy was on my block today. And I think that's what we push and drive, like, into these kids is, I don't really care what you want to be.
Yeah.
As long as that's your version of success, then I'm just gonna push you all the way so that you can be the most successful.
I was excited at a young man who was leaving supervision. He was charged with, at one point, attempted murder. And so he gets through this whole thing, ends up back in the juvenile system, does amazing. And when we were letting him go, I'm like, so what's your plan? And he graduated high school in time. He's like, I'm moving to Texas. My uncle is going to help fund me. I want to raise exotic animals and sell them. And I'm like, snakes, reptiles, things I don't have any interest in. But it made me, like, to me, I'm like, he has a passion. He has a purpose. These are things he loves. It's going to happen because he's not just taking a job just to say, well, I have a job and I'm going to go do this and I'm going to be okay.
Right.
He's excited. And he was like, I'm moving like halfway across the country tomorrow, and I have a plan on how to do this. And I'm like, that excites me.
Right.
So.
There's a difference between a job and a career. A job is something you have to do. A career is something you love to do. Yeah. And I think that, finding your purpose here, and then really, it's rare that you find your purpose, but once you do find your purpose, take it all the way. Yeah. Take it as far as you could go. And I feel like you'll never feel like you're working. I think a lot of people here in Benchmark program, this is their career. Their
love
purpose
what you do,
is,
and you never work a day of your life.
That's what it is. Yep. Your purpose here is to help people, and that's what we love to do. So, you got any questions for me?
I had tons. So when you're working with kids, do you actually go to court with them?
So I don't go to court with them, but in strength-based skill building program, SBSB, my little brother Tyson, he goes to court with them. Predispo, Terrence, Kev, Kurt, they go to court with them. And as far as suspension alternative program, I'm in the schools. I don't go to court with them, but there has been times where a student would be like, "Can you come to court with me?" All right. And it's like, "Hey, Roman, my manager, can I go to court with them?" And that's cool. They'll just let it. We'll figure it out as far as like scheduling.
I just wondered, like, so somebody's there from here, from Benchmark, as an advocate for these kids. Yeah. Someone's there to kind of also a friendly face.
Right.
Because I think going in the courtroom and being kind of isolated can shut you down. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. Every time I went in the courtroom, I had I used to make sure I put my head down and my hands behind my back because I had hand tattoos, so I didn't want the judge to see my tattoos or like anything, my neck tattoos or anything. So I used to go into court and I used to put my head down, have my hands behind my back. My dad used to make sure that I was standing up straight and I had a little button up on and, things like that. But I think that a lot of people like Justice, she just went into court with a student and, she got the opportunity to, a lot of times the judge will ask Benchmark about the student. And that's our time to share like what we've learned about the student. And listen, this student's doing amazing. This is what they face, and this is what we're trying to get over right now. But this is what we're working on. This is what we've done since we've been working with the student. Just shed a different light of, so many times you hear just bad.
Exactly.
It's like there's some good things in there as well.
Well, I believe I'm always thinking these kids need positive. At least in my experience, is that they need to hear something positive out of the situation. Otherwise, it's a matter of it's that survival mode. It's like,
right.
But kind of shut down, wait till it's over, and get out. And whether it's getting through probation at the other end, and you end up at the same spot you started, that's not success to me. It's not just getting you through that 6 months, 12 months. It's the idea of getting you to where you've moved ahead.
Right.
Now you have something positive going on.
100%. Yeah, I think these kids need something to look forward to. Feel something that like you didn't just get off probation, you accomplished this and this and this and this while you were on probation. So many times I was on probation since I was in like 7th grade, and I just got off of probation when I was like, I think May or something like that. So I've been not this month, last year. So when I was 26, so I've been on probation my whole entire life. But honestly, I've never had a probation officer that was like wanting to help me accomplish things or like wanting to, hey, listen, there's a job opportunity over here. Never. It was just come in here, pee, your pee's clean, all right, get out.
That's it.
That was it.
So when you were in juvenile probation, do you feel like there was times you could feel yourself kind of going back down the same path? And yeah, I guess what I'm asking, like, was there times in juvenile probation like, all right, I'm going kind of in a good path, or was it always that I'm just trying to not get caught?
I'm not trying to get caught.
That was what it was?
The entire time.
That's what
I don't want to get caught.
And so, like, your interactions with your probation officer were pretty much stay away from them because it's one more chance to get caught.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
And when I go in there, it's all yes, ma'am, yes, sir, no, ma'am, no, sir. It was all that.
That's where I need to. I love to hear this because I'm like, how do we move beyond that? Because if the probation officers allow you to just do that, nothing's changing.
Right.
Right. And so, like, we have to think about how we change or interact in a way that you have to probably slow down.
Yeah.
And actually open up.
Right.
So I don't know how that works. How do you guys do that to get kids to open up?
How to get kids to open up.
Yeah.
That's how to get kids to be vulnerable, right? Yeah. So, and where we come from, right, in the streets, vulnerability is looked at as weakness, right?
It's looked at as adults in every world,
right?
In my world,
and you need to be able to.
Vulnerability is a weakness.
100%, and it's crazy, right? Because I just created a lesson on vulnerability, and Brene Brown, she wrote a book called Dare to Lead, and she talks about vulnerability in the book on how important it is, and her book is called Dare to Lead. And leaders need vulnerability. But how you do it is you need to be vulnerable. Yeah. So the kid's looking at you and, you're behind the desk. You got a good job. You got pictures of your family up on your desk and stuff like that. You come from some, in their head, they're like, you probably never went through no type of adversity or, you went through nothing. You got this job and everything was made for you, not knowing that you went to Franklin and Marshall, right? Yeah. A crazy school where like you have to be really intelligent. Went to Temple, went to law school. All those things is difficult to do. They don't understand that though, right? So I think you need to be a little bit vulnerable with them. So give them a little, and they'll give you a little.
All right.
It's just hand in hand, right? If I give you something, you'll give me something. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. Let me tell you how I'm a real person. Just because I'm behind this desk and you think that I just want to lock you up, it's not the case. Actually, before I actually got in trouble with the cops before, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, you're a probation officer that got in trouble by cops." So how did this happen?
Because I always try to think of the line for me of like, because I have my own kids, how much I share and how much I don't. Because some of my kids are the same age as the kid in front of me, so I share a little bit about because my kids aren't perfect.
Right.
They push us and the way they want to do things, but like it's sometimes like is that how that's received. If it's like, we don't want to hear about your kids, like I got my own problems. I don't need to hear about your kids. I don't need to hear about you. You're telling me that's better? share a little bit of that, or
no? So they don't want to hear about your kids.
all right,
because you're gonna tell them about your kids, and they're just like, you ever tell somebody a problem and they tell you about their problem, and it's like, did you even listen to my problem? It's not that. It's more or less like they tell you about your problem, you're like, damn, that's crazy. Never say I understand, because you don't understand, because even if you went through the same exact situation, you don't understand how I cope with it. So you don't understand how I felt. I think it's more or less like sharing something that you did, something that was embarrassing for you, something that you went through. And then it's like, oh, this person's real. I know your kids are real, but this person is real. Who I'm talking to, the Judge Tira, you're real, because you went through this, and this happened. So now I know I can trust you. I can talk to you.
All right.
I think that's how it works.
And that's hard.
Yeah, it's difficult.
That vulnerability thing, that's hard
It's
at all
difficult.
levels to put that guard down.
So a lot of times, right, like, and I'm not saying like you could go in there and say, yeah, a kid's talking to you about that has a gun charge. I'm Judge Tira right now, and I can't say, yeah, I've got shot. The bullet stuck in my L2 in my lower spine. I lost 4 liters of blood, right? I was at a party, and I robbed a party, beat someone up in the backyard, and then I ended up leaving and getting shot. You can't do that, right?
I don't have that story.
Right? So, but at the same token, you do have a story though, right? You played football. You faced adversity playing football. You played sports. You know what it is to lose, right? You know how it feels to win. So you have things that like I can relate to. If you talk about you played football, you might be able to talk about a time where you played football and you got benched or something like that happened, or you had to work harder than everyone else because you were short, you had moderate speaking, right?
Not so bad. I had to think ahead.
Right. So you had to really like plan of how I'm going to become a starter, right? And that was some adversity you faced. So I think just being authentic, being who you are, and sharing your story like that speaks volume to people. We preach authenticity all the time. Authenticity and being vulnerable. Being you. You do have a story. You went through tough things. You went to Franklin and Marshall. You went to Temple. Like, just because you went to those schools doesn't mean your life is picture perfect, right? You were blessed to have sneakers as a kid. You were blessed to have your mom and your dad in your life. But like, talk about how impactful that coach was, your football coach, that you talked about on the first podcast. How hard he pushed you, how hard he rode you, like, so that you can become better. So understanding that and then relaying that to the kid is like, I'm going to be how my coach was to me, I'm going to be that in your life. So I understand that it's coming from a good place, because I only want you to be successful.
That's good, because you immediately put a kid in my mind who I can relate that story to, who's driving me crazy because he just like the potential's high,
right?
But his resistance to everything is real high. So
yeah, I think some kids need to be broken down too. Like they got all these walls up, and it takes forever. Mm-hmm. It takes forever for someone.
But I think something you said last time stuck with me. Like, no matter whatever's going on, Will and the guys here were with you. Like
100%.
And that's where, like, to me, it's like trying to convince these kids that we're not going anywhere.
Right.
Like, good or bad, I won't be happy with the bad, but like I'm here and I'm still trying to work with you to get you to the positive.
Right.
And I want to try to make that known to those kids.
Yeah, and understand that, like, you want the best for them, but understand that, like, they need to understand that you're not gonna not let it go bad. Like, if that's what you want and you want to take it there, I'm willing to take it there right with you. Yeah. But I really want this to go well. So please let this go well. Yeah. But if you don't want this to go well, I can't really do nothing for you, and we could take it there to be bad.
So in those situations where we're struggling and kids been around, we feel like we've built a little bit of a relationship, but they're kind of struggling with some of the behaviors. I've tried to be straight with them, saying like, either X, Y, and Z are going to happen, or we're going to talk about placement next time.
Right.
Like, is that a good tack to be just straightforward? Like, I'm trying to be straight with them because I don't want it to be, hey, good job, Johnny. You just fix up a little bit, and like they come in and the next time they're like, what do you mean? Like, we're talking about me going to placement. Yeah,
I think I don't think the question is like, oh, if I do something, I'm gonna end up in placement. I think they know that. So when you tell them and you're straightforward with them, which some people need, like me, I need someone to be straightforward with me in black and white. This is what it is. This is what you need to do, and I appreciate that. With kids, I feel as though it's just more or less like, I never really tell them like, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this could happen. I ask them questions. So like, all right, so a kid, for example, a kid comes in with a gun charge to your courtroom. I would ask the kid, what do you think I should do?
I've done that.
Right.
I was like, what would you do in my spot? Like,
and that's what it is.
Because it's a kid who I've seen before. I wouldn't do that in the first time I've seen him.
You're right.
I've done it with kids who I'm like, what? Since the last time we've been here and you've done this stuff, what do you expect me?
The third time I'm seeing you.
What do you expect they're going to ask me to do? And I'll get them to say before anyone else says this, what do you think they're going to ask me to do? Send me away. All right, I don't want to do that. So let's talk about what we're going to do.
Exactly. And I think it's just more or less just asking, framing the questions so that they come to the conclusion themselves.
Yeah.
Not really telling them this is this, right? So even when we teach lessons, we don't teach the lessons and we say, first we're going to play a game, first we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. It's more or less like, all right, listen, do y'all guys, we play a game called Mafia, right? So do you guys want to do the lesson first or do you want to do Mafia first? Just making them feel like they're in control and empowered, empowering them, right? So then they're more willing to do what is asked of them, right? So if they say, oh, we want to play the game first and then we'll play Mafia, okay. We want to play Mafia and then we want to do the lesson. They're more willing to now participate during the lesson because they felt as though they picked
they
right?
had the choice.
What it was. So when you talk to them, he's asking them questions, it's like, all right, well, these are the options, right? Yeah. So what do you really want to do? Where do we go?
Where do you want to go with this?
Right. Then it's like, well, I guess you're going to send me away, Judge Tira. That's just what it has to be.
And that's I've had some good occasions where kids have come back and said, I didn't think I needed to stay. I didn't think I needed to go. But like, thankful that they went.
Yeah.
And I don't like doing it but I'm like, sometimes the temperatures are too hot in the community, and where they're at and what they're doing is one step away from them getting seriously hurt. And it's like, you're not hearing anybody in the community. You're running full speed, and whatever is the driver, it's like you've got 4 charges in the last 4 weeks.
Right.
They're all dangerous. Like we can't continue this.
And I think this, and this might sound crazy to everybody that's watching, but one of the best things that ever happened in my life was moving to Coatesville, completely out of Lancaster and playing football. So, jail is jail, but completely removing someone from their environment, giving them the time and opportunity to think about like things they've done, because you're thinking 100%. You're thinking whether you're thinking of how not to get caught next time, or you're thinking of maybe I'm a bad criminal, I should stop. And a lot of the times, those are the conversations I had with myself. But honestly, I really think that sometimes it's beneficial to take someone out of that environment and put them somewhere else so they have time to reflect on what's going on. Now, inside the jail, I think that's where like the work can really be done.
That's one of the things that we talk about is like the goal of placement is not to sit you somewhere.
Right.
It's to get you somewhere where you can hear the treatment and engage in it. And it's trying to get the kids to realize that it's not, don't just try to wait it out. Like, it's not like go in, I'm going to be there 3 to 6 months, I'll come home and I got through it. No, I want you to engage. You'll set the time when you come home based on when you engage.
Right.
But trying to get that across the kids. And like, this is not, and I try to explain it, like, this is not an adult court where I send you away for 1 to 2 years and you do your time and you come home.
Mm-hmm.
This is, you go there and we come back every 3 months until you've engaged and done what you're supposed to. And hopefully that's as short as possible.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of kids are surprised that, like, they're so surprised that, like, I didn't want to give it a chance. I don't want to give it a chance. And then when they do, they're like, oh, this is actually not bad.
And I expect, and I almost surprised if I don't get the report after the first time they went to placement, that the first 2 to 4 weeks were awful. They didn't listen. They didn't want to engage. They didn't do anything. That's human nature.
Right.
I didn't want to do this in the first place. I didn't want to be here.
Right.
And eventually, something gets you to give in a little bit, and you start to participate. And then also, typically, as reported as well, the last few weeks they've turned. They've kind of been more open. They're willing to participate in the group stuff. They're willing to do this.
Right.
I try to let them know, like, all right, I get that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not mad because the first 2 weeks that you were difficult, because I get it. That's away from home. I wouldn't be real happy either.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of times, like, if you take them out that environment, put them in there, like you're saying, and then you need to engage and participate to do something to get up out of here, that's perfect. Benchmark goes into detention centers and they play basketball, teach lessons, things like that. And then after that, most likely you're going to get referred to SBSB program, strength-based skill building program, or pre-dispo. So now you're working with us in here.
Come
and
right
now
from there to here.
Yeah, we see you again. Guess what? We're here. Guess what? We're in your school too.
That's one of my goals is to be able to we don't have that structure
Right.
in our county. We don't have a detention center in our county. So our kids, if they get in detention, are out of county, hours away.
Mm.
So that's one of my
That's
struggles.
difficult.
I don't want kids in detention, but if they're going to be in detention, I like to have them in my backyard,
Right.
so the probation officers can be there and go and meet with like you are doing with them, because I think we'll use this that they are the most raw
Right.
when they're in detention, because it is whatever happened just happened.
Yeah.
And you get to meet with them right then and there, and you start to have that conversation with them.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to be able to do with the kids. Well, we have, but unfortunately, a lot of times if they're in detention, we're seeing them like very minimally. I mean, we're doing the best we can, but we can't be traveling 3 hours one way to see a kid.
That's crazy. 3 hours is far.
Yeah,
That's
it's
far.
not a great setup, but that's we're working on it, and there's a chance we'll have it solved, or not solved. We'll have a better system by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Because solved would be we didn't need the detention center. But I don't know.
Right.
That's we'll get there.
Yeah.
But, so with working, do you work a lot with probation officers in Lancaster? Like, do you work like as like, I guess I wouldn't say as a team, but like both on the same side of things, kind of work with a kid, or do you feel like they're just kind of their own thing?
Benchmark works right next to probation officers, right beside them.
All right.
Side by side. So they know, you ask my little brother, if you bring up a kid, he knows their probation officer.
All right.
Like that. And he can tell you like the requirements of what they need to do to get off probation, what they need to like if they need to write a letter, how much their court like restitution is, and all that. He can tell you everything.
Do you guys feel that there's stuff that you guys do that you wish the probation officers were doing with the kids? Like you're like, why are we the only ones doing this?
Yeah, 100%. And I think hopefully they don't get mad or upset, but because I don't work directly with probation officers, so I say what I want. But I think a lot of it is just if you don't like your job, then don't work there.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're upset because you have to see kids, maybe that's not your calling. Maybe that's not your purpose, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the kid's fault. Like, well, it's the kid's fault he's on probation, but it's not his fault that he was assigned to you.
That you got this job. Yeah.
Right? So if this is your line of work, you know, just be happy that you're here. Be happy to see the kids. Be happy to work with the kids. Show them that it's genuine and you really want the best for them. So many times I go into probation like when I was on probation, I meet my new probation officer, and off rip, they read all the things that I can't do.
Yeah.
Right? And then they look at me and say, you got any questions? All right, bye.
That's
See you in 2 weeks. I'm looking at like, damn.
Yeah. He's not your ally.
Yeah, right? So, you know, just be a little bit more genuine. I think Benchmark really prides themselves on, like, I don't care what your background is. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what you did. Usually, you know, like, sometimes we don't even read, like, what the kid is on, like, or has these charges for. Is the kid's going to tell me.
He'll share it with
Eventually.
And he'll tell you the full story.
Yeah, and 100%. And even if we do read those, we still don't tell them, like, I know you're on probation for this. You're going to tell me eventually. You're going to open up and you're going to be like, yeah, I got caught with.
Yeah.
And then we can move from there. But I'm not going to sit there and air your business out and act like I know you. I don't know you. I don't know what happened. So tell me.
Get the full story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what I'm trying to think, because we don't have a benchmark.
Right.
So I want to be able, like, part of my idea is, like, I want to take some of the stuff that you're doing
Yeah.
and have the probation officers in our county do that.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm trying to, like, steal as much as I can in a positive way of doing that. So, like, stuff that you see that you guys do that you think probation could handle, and you're filling in the gap just because they're not doing it.
I think, honestly, just the like what you do in the courtroom.
Yeah.
What do you like? Asking them what they like. Maybe have a Google Doc of each kid and literally write, this person's favorite color is blue.
And just everything down.
Yeah, just
all
like,
the details.
You know, that's the little stuff so that when, you know, I talk to you and you're like, oh, did you see that Ohio State game? That was a tough game. Y'all lost to Oregon, right? That hurt, didn't it? Right? So then I'm like, oh, yeah, you remember I like Ohio State. And I'm more willing to talk to you. I'm more willing to do what you need me to do. Right. You remember those things. That's the small things. People, you know, like, you have a wife. I'm sure that when you pay attention to detail, she loves that about you, right? Like, so it's the small things, like, even with anybody, you know, you're really paying attention to who I am and what I like.
So you have all the money in the world to create something for kids that are in the juvenile justice. What do you do?
create a benchmark program everywhere in the world.
All right, that's great to know. We'll replicate that.
This works.
It does.
This works.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what I want to know from someone that's in the business. Like, what is it that we can replicate?
This works, and I think we have a solid idea of how it works. But I think the big question mark is, how do you get a Nate? How do you get a Tyson? How do you get a Will, a Whit, a Roman, a Justice, a Kev, Kurt? How do you get the people that work here in that other building and work the same way?
How do you get them in each county?
Exactly.
How do you find these people in each county?
Where do you find these people?
Will
found me right out of jail. So I and that sounds crazy.
No, but it doesn't. Because I'm like the people who like in the substance use world, I forget the term they use. There's a title for someone like that works in that field, and most of them have, it's like a recovery specialist.
Yeah.
Most of, like the number of them that have experience, like their own personal like story,
right?
It's high. So it's not unusual that someone that has experience that's better than an education. Because I mean, like you understand it better than I do. So
I think I'll be honest with you, right? I've never told anyone this. I think the people that you find are the people that don't have degrees. I think that people that, most of the people that have degrees, like and I'm not saying cancel, when they put their application in, oh, you went to college? No, right? I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is people that like think they can read a book and then put me in a book, like, oh, now I know how to work with Nate because I read this book. That's not how it works, Not because you went to college and you did sociology and psychology and you think you know how I work. You don't. You didn't just read a book and figure out how to work with me. You actually have to do the work and care.
So it goes back to the idea, like, education is great, but if you don't have, this isn't some controlled experiment.
Right.
This isn't like something, this is real. You have to interact with people.
Yeah.
And so, like,
because I know the smartest, like, people that, like, went to college and got degrees, and then, I hear them try to talk to a kid, and I'm like, you're missing one thing. All you got to do is say this, and then the relationship is going to be open and on track to doing great things, but you don't know to say that.
Yeah. So then that comes more from experience, you think?
Mm-hmm. I think it comes more from experience and just caring. Like, you got to find people that really care,
I think it's absolutely right. I think I think about that all the time. It's about, I always say, slowing down, because if you slow down and you start to interact, that's a sign of that you're listening to someone, you're caring about what's going on.
Right.
When we're fast and we're just fixing a problem, we're not fixing it.
We're just slapping Band-Aids on it.
Yeah.
Slapping Band-Aids on it. And I think people that really, like, do the work, either, they don't have to, it's like I said, they don't have to come straight from, Will doesn't come from how I grew up at all. But me and Will done the most work together. And that's because he genuinely cares. He genuinely listened. He actively listened when we sat and talked. And he wanted me to be successful. I didn't understand why.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't understand why. He seen something in me that I didn't see in myself, though. Now I'm on a podcast with a judge that I probably would have been in front of when I was younger, And it's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? But he's seen this for me before I seen it for myself. His mom sends me research papers, and I read research papers and stuff like that. Like, I never knew that I was going to be doing stuff like that. I never knew. I thought that stuff was interesting.
Yeah.
But it is. And they showed me that stuff and then exposed me to that stuff where I took it and ran, Not all kids are going to take advantage either.
No, but I think there's an opportunity with every kid.
Right.
And because just the way you talk about that, because I see when these kids in front of me, I'm like, they have like the potential in so many of these kids is so high, and it's like a matter of getting them one to, I guess, believe in themselves. I think that's part of what you're saying is, like, Will gave you that little bit of confidence to believe in yourself too.
Mm-hmm. It was more like he was bringing me to meetings and stuff like that, and I said that, like, and I didn't talk, and then he encouraged me to speak in these meetings and things like that. Now that I feel confident enough to sit down with you, and I can say what I want to say and feel confident in articulating myself and using the correct verbiage and things like that in order to get my point across, right? So now I can be in these rooms. So he built that confidence in me, though. I was always confident though.
Yeah.
I always thought I was that guy.
Yeah.
Right? Even when I was in jail, I thought I was that guy. But turned out I wasn't.
You were in a different way.
Yeah, right.
And it wasn't leading you to good places. So.
Right, 100%. So, he just kind of more or less was like, yo, bro, you can hang with these guys and you can throw punches with these guys as well. And then showing like look, you do this in this world, right? This is how you do it in this world. This is the professional world, though, and this is how we do it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I see it. Because in the professional world, it's a lot like the streets. Sometimes it's really dog eat dog. Yeah. And sometimes you need to, sometimes old Nate comes out at times, like in certain meetings and things like that, where I just need to get my point across or whatever the case may be. But I got to know how to, all right, relax. We're not about to fight in this meeting. So,
you can still have the same passion, just it comes out different.
100%. And there's a book that it's called Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. 50 Cent wrote it with another author, and that book kind of just put in perspective like who I am. And 50 Cent from this got shot, whatever the case may have been, and turned into this professional world. He talks about the similarities and the differences, and that kind of put into perspective how I need to maneuver in certain situations.
Because I had a couple other questions we dealt with kids. Other one about the system. So I asked you what you would add. What would you get rid of?
What would I get rid of as far as what? Like the system?
Just for what you see in probation, you see in the courts, you see just stuff with working with kids. Like what's another, like I guess the thing that gets in the way?
Court calls, money.
All right.
Yeah. Most likely I'm in this trouble because I don't have money.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna ask me for $10,000 and fines, damages, and things like. I don't have the money, so now I'm set back even further. And my mom and my dad's beating me up because they getting hit with the fine. Yeah. So they're upset. The money is. Sometimes I think it's ridiculous. One of my friends just got a speeding ticket the other day, and it was like on the, and I don't think you can change this, but on the ticket it said like emergency vehicle. There was no ambulance that came out, and that was like the most expensive thing on the ticket. The ticket itself was like $50-$60, but it came out to $220. What are all these extra fees that's going on?
Taxes.
Yeah. So
all they are is a way to pay for. It's how we tax everyone, and it's crazy because you're right because the speeding ticket's small. To pay for everything else it's just a tax.
Yeah, we need to figure.
But for in the juvenile world, that's interesting to say because like we see it all the time, and we try not to hold that against kids in the sense that it prevents them from being off probation because it doesn't keep them on there, and try to figure out ways. One thing, and tell me if you think this is good or bad. We will give kids extra community service to pay for their cost and to pay for their restitution and to basically work off their debt.
That's perfect.
Is that good?
I think it's great. I literally was just going to say, I was just literally going to suggest, why can't kids figure out how to work and pay those things off? Like, sorry, cool, you give me a $5,000 fine. I'm cool with the $5,000 fine if you tell me how to get money the right way and I can get this paid off.
Because the problem we have is you have a kid that has $500 in restitution. He's 13. He can't get a job.
Right.
So what's he going to do for $500? Like mom, dad, and as you said, that's not going to help him at home. So
what's he going to do? He's going to
try to give him community service and say, you do community service. There's a fund that money can be taken out to pay restitution for you.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to go at that problem. But I do think that like those fines and court costs is crazy. I still got fines and court costs. I'm still paying them.
From where, as an adult or as a juvenile?
Both. They just combine.
Really? Because I know, like, I always think about, like, what we have. Like, each case a kid gets in juvenile in our county is $105.25. That's court costs. And then if you broke something or you destroyed something, then that's a restitution that's just going to get tacked on top of it.
Right.
5-6 cases, you're getting up there a lot of money pretty quick.
Yeah. So I still have things that I'm still, like, paying off. And, of course, I was that guy that was like, I'm gonna do a payment plan and I'm gonna pay $10 a month. I'm gonna be paying $10 a month for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
So instead of just attacking it and just being like, all right, let's get this done and let's get this over with, I'm one of those people that's like, okay, I'm gonna pay $10 a month, right? So not addressing it fully because I'm still upset that I still have to pay $20,000. But I did it. So I need to accept it and what comes with it, and the damages that I made. But yeah, I think that's great. I think that's great that that's an option over there.
Well, and so shifting gears a little bit on you, questions because you work with kids more directly than I do. What are common conversations, topics? What is the center, the kids, what's their focus?
So usually their focus is what's the importance, what's the relevance of school? Why do I need it? I need money. And a lot of times is the living situations at home. So whether it's a bad relationship with the mom or the dad or things like that. Those are the main topics though. I need money. I hate school, and my living situation is horrible.
So when they hate school, what's the discussion How do you address that when they're because I deal with kids like that, and that don't want to come to school. They're true. School's it's worthless. I hate it.
Yeah.
How do you talk about it? Because I struggle with time trying to get to some of these kids.
I tell them the same thing. I say, listen, I hate school too. And I tell them, I said, I don't see why, school is here and is not teaching you a lot of things that are applicable to your life now. But I think it's just one of those things that no matter what, you have to do. What do you want to do in life? What does success look like to you? Most of the time, success looks like to them is a lot of money. And there's a statistic that says most millionaires are college graduates. So guess what, buddy? If that's your version of success, you need school.
I've tried to do that with kids to show every step of the way from a no high school diploma to a GED to a high school diploma, and just the amount, the average wage. You can show that to kids.
Yeah.
I gave it to a kid, and I think she threw it away before she even looked at it. I'm like, what? I guess all she talked about was how she wanted money, and she just wanted money and all this stuff. So I just came back in next time I saw her. I said, so this is what school means.
Right.
I couldn't get her to even look at it.
I think the conversation then needs to shift into a lot of people like to complain and don't want to do anything about their situation. Are you one of those people?
All right. I didn't pull that one, but that's a good one to try on that because that was.
So if you're one of those people, don't waste my time. I'm not going to waste your time. If you don't want to know how to make money, I'm sitting here telling you I'm successful. I make a decent amount of money, right? I'm sitting here trying to tell you how to make money. If you don't care about that, are you one of those people that are just going to sit here and complain to me? And then I'm trying to help you, and you don't want to do anything about your situation. If that's the case, then that's fine, because I won't help you. So you're coming to me when you need help.
I think we got to wrap up already.
Yeah, I think it's over with. I appreciate you for coming out here again, and I think some of the questions are great questions. And anytime you ever have a question, you can always reach out and just ask me.
I love to keep this conversation going.
100%.
So if you have me back, I'll come back again.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, Nate.
All right, see you, boss.